All right, so welcome everyone to the Sacred Seven. Very grateful to be here with you. I'm going to go ahead and begin here by introducing myself, and I'm going to light some of this medicine I have here. Have some sage and some cedar prepared here, so we can get right into this topic, this discussion, and how it relates to self-identity and the optimal space of human design. So I'm very grateful for everybody tuning into this broadcast here on Zoom, and very grateful that I'm able to share this information with all of you. I really look forward to diving deep into the Sacred Seven. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself to you here in the traditional language, and then in the contemporary, I'm going to offer the prayer and light the medicine here, the sage and the cedar. So, Dogate, Andrew Ecker, Yinishe, Adona E Ninigi E De Nishe, Irish Bashachin, E De Dashache, German Dashanali, Akote Go E Tishli A, Portland, Oregon, Inasha, Shema A, Kathy Lindsay, Woye, Shaza A, Dale Ecker, Wole. My name is Andrew Ecker, mother Kathy Lindsay, my father Dale Ecker. My mother's mother Elva Gallegos, Apache woman from New Mexico. My father's mother Evelyn Beatty, an Irish woman from Pennsylvania. My mother's father Leroy Lindsay, Apache man from Arkansas. My father's father Wayne Ecker, German and Algonquin from Pennsylvania. I have a daughter Bailey, a son Peyton, and a beautiful beloved fiance Monica. I'm going to go ahead and light this medicine here and bless myself and prepare to share with you this awesome technology and transformational information. So, Father, Mother, Creator, Source, I thank you for this opportunity to enter into this prayer place. I pray you would guide me, guide my words, help me to be a blessing to myself, to my family, to my community, to the planet. I thank you for the above place, the below place, the inside place, the east, the south, the west, the north, and all the holy ones that are there. Our moms, our dads, our grandmas, our grandpas, our aunties, our uncles, our cousins, our sons, our daughters, all of our relations like that, I give thanks to you for. I pray you would equip me, my words, my intellect, my understanding of this beautiful ceremonial introduction, and how we can help ourselves learn to be in relationship and spiritual relationship with you and all the holy people and our human relations as well. Beauty above, beauty below, beauty beside, beauty in front, beauty behind, beauty within. I am, we are made beautiful again. All right, so the Sacred Seven is the topic of my book that I wrote. The Sacred Seven is a path to the wholeness of self-identity. It's based on traditional introduction, ceremonial introduction, but it's applicable to you in your contemporary lifestyle, which is very important. I don't want anyone to come into this presentation thinking that I am trying to impart to you a wisdom from a specific tribe. Instead, I'm trying to help you understand a technology of self-identity that really loosens us from the confusion of the illusion of what the institution has created inside of us. And when I mean the institution, I mean all of the institutions around us that create forms of self-identity that are contrary to the living experience of really being a child, being a grandchild, and sitting in that space, resting in that space, and the comfort that comes from knowing who you are. So we come to this place now in a good way, in a way of sharing this information, conveying it to you with respect, with love, with beauty, and with integrity. This technology has transformed my life. I came into understanding myself through the Sacred Seven, in the indigenous people on the Navajo Nation. I grew up knowing I was Indian, but I basically found out I was native from behind a bottle of whiskey. My grandfather, one day I came home from school. He was military, ex-military, struggled with alcoholism, but he was a strong force in my life. And I asked him, kids are asking, what I am. And when he told me about my Apache lineage, that originally actually comes from Texas, but then we migrated over to New Mexico. And then I found myself in Portland, Oregon, because my family was very clannish. So one family member got a good job, and then he basically supported everybody in our family coming into Portland, Oregon, which I grew up on the same street that my grandmother, my mom, my aunts, my great-grandmother, we all lived on the same corner basically in Southeast Portland, Oregon. So That's a little bit about my story. I'm going to get into it more as we go here because it helps people to understand this technology and how it relates to self, the optimal state of self-design, and living a really abundant life. So tonight you're going to learn during this webinar the 7 containers of self-identity. These 7 containers of self-identity are synonymous with the inner child, the divine feminine, the divine masculine, the East, which represents the new self, the South, which represents who we are to our family, the West represents our community self. This is who we are to the community. And then the North represents who we are to the elementals. This is an important foundational concept within the Sacred Seven because it begins to help you understand how our consciousness within self-identity can be a call to the directions and give us a total perspective of self. So as I introduce myself, I'm also placing my consciousness into all 7 of these directions. We begin the presentation tonight with the 3 spiritual directions, and we'll go into those as we go along. Now, this foundation of self-identity is reflected in our relationships. So when we begin to create balance in who we believe ourselves to be, in how we rest in being a child, being a grandchild, being a citizen of the earth, being a citizen of the galactic nations, being that person that's really honed in to themselves, we begin to create balance in all of our relationships. And that's what's so important about relational spirituality and how indigenous communities throughout the world understood that it's all about you. How you relate to yourself reflects upon the way that you relate to the earth, the way that you relate to one another, and how we can bring peace and balance back to ourselves. Very important time for going inward, and that's why we're launching the Sacred Seven right now. This is really, we've been working on this presentation for a while, me and my beloved fiance, Monica, and in doing this, we just feel like this is such a great opportunity for people to come to an awareness of themselves, to create that ceremonial energy, the person that really is the truth of what you have been created to be and living in that optimal state of human design. So a little bit about me. I'm a little bit about some of the stuff that I do in life. So I'm a speaker, I'm a business owner, own 2 successful wellness-based businesses. I work in community development, personal empowerment. I've been life coaching, business coaching. We help people to turn information into transformation. That's really one of the goals that we have, is to not just be an intellectual kind of, we don't want to just give you information, but give you information that you can translate into transformation, personal transformation in your life. This is what's very important about the Sacred Seven and how it relates to you in living that optimal state of human design. The businesses that I own, Drumming Sounds is primarily our #1 business, and with Drumming Sounds, we really haven't had a lot of time to spend to the Sacred Seven. We have been so busy in the past 20 years, really, of facilitating drum circles professionally, that spending time to develop this webinar and this information really wasn't, it was always kind of like this. I would say to myself, do I want to go facilitate drum circles, or do I want to focus on developing the Sacred Seven? And drum circles pretty much won out every single time. I love what we do in hospitals. I love going into psychiatric institutions, behavioral lockdowns, memory cares, skilled nursing facilities, working with veterans. I'll share with you a little bit more about Drumming Sounds. So wellness sourcing. So Drumming Sounds is our wellness program business. We facilitate an evidence-based healing modality that utilizes recreational music. Basically, we go in and we work with sound, doing sound healing and drum circles. Wellness sourcing is a product of Drumming Sounds, which gave us an opportunity to work with low-income and HUD housing communities. So places like Chicana Casa, the Cesar Chavez Foundation, the Urban League, Mercy Housing. These are basically project buildings for elders. I had a vision to be able to give our program to these underserved populations. Wellness sourcing was the vehicle that allowed us to do that. And this is basically working with insurance brands, an experiential marketing company, is what wellness sourcing does. And it gives us an opportunity to bring wellness programs to underserved populations. And then, of course, the Sacred Seven, which is something I'm very passionate about. I've spoke on this topic before in keynote presentations at many different events around the country, and I've done one-on-one work with people, but I'm excited tonight because this is really the beginning stages of launching this program in an online setting. So thank you so much for taking time out of your night to be here with us. And I know that this program is going to bring value to you, and you're really going to learn a lot about these key steps. And also, I have a gift for you. If you have not received a copy of my book, I will be giving you a free copy of the book. At the end, there's a panelist section where we're going to be able to do a little bit of interaction, answer some questions, share what we've learned tonight. And in there, I'll give you the link to getting your own free copy of the Sacred Seven. So this is some of the clients we've been working with. This is my beautiful fiance, Monica. Some of the keynote presentations that I've done as a speaker: Arizona Assisted Living Federation Association, the largest assisted living organization in the state of Arizona. This basically governs retirement communities, skilled nursing communities, memory cares, psychiatric behavioral assisted living facilities, those kind of institutional settings that are long-term care. This is the organization that goes in and does policy to help make sure our elders are taken care of well. So I was a presenter at their annual conference twice. The International Breathwork Foundation, global group of breath workers. We, of course, use the breath in our work, and we were a keynote presenter for that organization in Joshua Tree. The Arizona Senior Center Association did 2 keynote presentations with them. The Arizona Activity Coordinators Association, 3 keynote presentations over the many years of active service in the community. Drum Circle Facilitators Guild, I did a presentation for them. The National Foundation of Families for Children's Mental Health, amazing conference. Basically groups from all around the country that are associated with the mental health of our children, helping to prevent suicide. I happen to be a suicide survivor. We also on here, the Out of the Darkness Walk. I don't have it on here, but we were keynote presentation for that as well. Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Association have always had a passion for working with people that are dealing with physical issues, disabilities, those kinds of things. And also within that population, there's a lot of people that are dealing with opiate addiction, which is another platform that we really love to speak to. We love working in drug treatment facilities. ASTRA, which is the Arizona Therapeutic Recreation Association, keynote presentation for them. Over on this side, underneath the picture of me and Monica, some of the large-scale music festivals we've worked with. The reason that we really feel compelled in music festivals is this is the place where the youth are out there living their lives. We're meeting them at their point of need. So amazing, some of the transformations that have happened at the music festivals. I'll just share a really brief story with you. We were at this really mainstream music festival, and most of the festivals that we go to have a variety of workshops: yoga, tai chi, qigong. They're going to have transformational workshops around spirituality, around breath work, all kinds of different workshops. So we fit in really well with what we would call a transformative music festival. But this festival was a lot more mainstream, basically music, and then they had us on the side because a Grateful Dead cover band was actually performing there. This was the Pot of Gold Music Festival. So we set up the drums, and you know, we just come with authenticity and vulnerability. Me and Monica have always worked in that space, and that's the space that we come from our hearts. Working with these youth and going up there and drumming with them, it creates a container where they feel that connection. You know, for me, the drum was a safe place for me. Drumming with people was something that was a connection that I had to the community. It felt safe, it felt right. It was a very powerful experience for me, my first drum circle. So I love to go out there and give people that opportunity to connect. At this music festival, we were drumming, and I just felt inspired to share from my heart that I was a suicide survivor. And I said, how many of you would raise your hand and share that you're a suicide survivor too? And it was amazing. There was probably, I mean, there was about 150 people that were standing around in this circle as we had about 30 drums out, shakers, rattles, and bells. There were other performers that were there, but so many people raised their hands. I can't give you an accurate number, but I know it was close to 20 or so people, maybe even more. And this one young man, he looked at me with this look on his face. It was like he had seen a ghost when I said that I was a suicide survivor. And then at the end of the program, we're picking up the drums, and this kid, he's probably in his 20s, he's just overly helping. I mean, he's like tripping over stuff to put the drums away. And I noticed this behavior, so I kind of pulled him aside and I grabbed him by both hands and said, "Brother, I see you. And I just want you to know that it's okay. You know, I know what you're going through right now, and I can feel your heart." And he just looked at me, and in the middle of this festival with huge, you know, Budweiser signs behind us and all these like major liquor and everything, this kid just starts crying. I mean, literally like snot bubble crying as I'm holding this grown man, this, you know, this young man in my arms in the middle of this festival. He's talking to me about suicide. And those are the kind of experiences that we have at the music festivals as we go out and minister to the youth. And it's not like we're out there, you know, trying to preach any kind of religion, but just simply connection, spirituality, connection to the drum. And it's been an amazing opportunity to work with these music festivals. We really enjoy it. On the other side, Maricopa County Public Health, largest public health organization, they have us as a medical intervention, working with elders in the community. Bain Consulting, a $4.3 billion consulting firm. We've done team building for them. Native American Connections, Native Americans for Community Action. We've actually done wellness-based programs in suicide prevention for 6 different nations: the Havasupai, the Hopi, the Dene, the Gila River Indian community, the Tohono O'odham, and the Pasquayaqui. Along with the Veterans Association, was a contractor with the VA for 2 years over there. Charles Schwab, Caremore Insurance, variety of insurance brands, Cancer Treatment Centers of America, which I'll get into next. I'm going to show you this video, awesome video. Really one of the main things about this video is that they gave us just so much time. When you, whenever you're I've had many stories done on the work that we do throughout the years with healing and music, but to have them give 4.5 minutes, it just really shows how much their lives were changed by the program. So I'll go ahead and play this video for you.
We all have a connection to cancer. We all know survivors, and we all know people whose lives were stolen by the disease. This next story is about stealing those moments back through a form of therapy that has nothing to do with chemo or radiation. This is about finding inner peace by releasing your outer rhythm. Under a burnt orange sky in the West Valley at sunset, a fire swirls in the wind with the added rhythm of percussion and peace.
Everybody take a deep breath. Pull it out with a big sigh.
If fire is symbolic of a burning will to live, then maybe music can unleash that will to live in the moment.
Again, deep breath.
Some of these folks don't know how many moments they have left.
I'm going through a lot right now.
In October, stomach pains for Donna West sent her to the doctor.
And then they found out that I had pancreatic cancer.
Say it with me.
Eva McComb's grandchildren don't know the whole story yet of why Grandma drives alone from LA to Goodyear every few weeks.
And I came down with peritoneal cancer, which is not that common.
Eva and Donna are doing everything they can with traditional medicine to fight their cancers. They're also experiencing something else, music therapy and Andrew Ecker's drum circle.
Let's do it together as a group. You're not alone.
Andrew is a professional drum circle facilitator with nearly 20 years experience. It's his passion and career. He leads hundreds of drum circles for all kinds of people, wounded veterans, Alzheimer's patients, even prison gangs.
3, sometimes 5 a day.
He comes here to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America on a regular basis.
We create a positive experience, an experience that's based around a very simple principle of love and healing.
Music therapy and the field known as health rhythms are part of an integrative approach to treatment.
One of the very unique aspects of our model of care is treating the whole person and not just the cancer.
In the circle, Andrew is 50% music teacher, 50% motivational speaker.
I said, are you ready? Yeah! Are you ready?
Yeah! And 100% connected to the group.
One more time, rumble! And stop! All right, this time we're gonna do a rumble. Then we're gonna put our hands in the air, and we're gonna say the words, "We are here!"
It was the first time that I've ever really been in a drum circle, but it was very spiritual.
Oh, it was something that I've always wanted to play with drums, and I've never been able to do it.
It's a lot of good karma in this place.
You know, we're gonna play our drums with love and healing in our hearts. And then that was the catalyst for dancing and for laughter and for people leaving the experience that they're having with cancer for a moment.
I asked Eva, could she leave behind her stage 4 cancer on this night?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The healing power of music isn't fully known, but doctors do know communal activities, engaging with people, and relaxing can boost immune systems. And isn't that what we truly need? Any boost in life? Because there are no guarantees. There's only that fire, that spirit, to celebrate the moments we do have.
We are here!
I have to tell you, we were out there that night for the whole drum circle from start to the finish and then some after they all finished up. It was really powerful, and that outdoor setting doesn't look like it's on the campus of a cancer center, right? Eva told me that performing like that with those drums and in front of a supportive group was something on her bucket list. We certainly want to wish all those folks out there the very best.
So that video, just awesome, shows so much of the work that we do. Of course, we've since 8 years the program has progressed, and we've become even more knowledgeable in the work that we're doing in the hospitals. But this kind of work with energy, using the drum, it's a very spiritual form of transformation. And for me, it relates directly to the Sacred Seven, because the Sacred Seven is that foundation. It is the technology that gives me the grounding presence to go into a hospital that has psychiatric patients, that has people that are dealing with a variety of issues, including cancer. And that's what's very powerful about this technology of self-identity, because it really gives you the equipment to do amazing things in the world. And I believe in this idea of self-identity and its empowerment. I know that it's a part of many spiritual traditions throughout the world. It's so pragmatic that oftentimes it's overlooked, but it's something that needs to be out there. And I am on a mission to help people understand themselves. This practice of transformation, of the realization of the Sacred Seven, and what you can do when you really know yourself, the power that's within you, how this is a very magnified space of relational spirituality. Now, it wasn't always like this for me. So before the Sacred Seven, before I came into this technology, the world had created so much influence in my life. I grew up basically with an inheritance of trauma. My parents died of drug-related causes. My mom from a cocaine overdose. My father from cirrhosis of the liver caused by hepatitis C. I myself, by the time, the earliest memories I have of me and my mom were shoplifting. She was involved in organized crime. My father was involved in organized crime. Both of them basically career criminals. And early memories of me and mom, out stealing. And the time I was a teenager, I was using heroin with my father. Subsequently, I went to prison for selling drugs. I was in prison for 3.5 years on the very same prison yard that I visited my dead father at. Talk about the cycle of addiction manifesting itself, right? And then on my mom's side, the prison was also used in the Apache Wars in Arizona, Fort Grant. This prison yard brought me to a place of revelation. The journey that I've had in self-discovery has been influenced by many outside forces, including stigma that's around families that are involved in the drug culture. Very early memories that I have of how I was influenced in that war on drugs that was going on. The day program came into my school, literally to a group of fifth graders. They said, if you have one drug addict parent, you're 50% more likely to have a problem with drugs. Well, for me, like not being a mathematician, but knowing what 50% and 50% meant, that was this impartation of self-identity. That was what led me to a career in selling LSD and mushrooms and marijuana, and subsequently going to prison for it. I'm very grateful for the time that I had in state prison and federal prison. I'm grateful for that time, because if it wasn't for that breaking of that yoke of slavery, that burden of slavery, those chains that were on me, I would have never found my way to this transformational spiritual foundation in the Sacred Seven, a way of introducing yourself in ceremony that even Jesus Christ used. Jesus Christ, when he went into the synagogue, he used this technology. It's not just about indigenous people in North America. All throughout the world, people have been using this technology of self-identity in a spiritual ceremonial context. And in this great awakening that's going on, where we have people that are struggling with suicide, struggling with addiction, struggling with all of the deep parts of this world that we're living in, it's very timely that we come back to this recognition. So we're going to get into the power of introduction and how we begin to loosen ourselves, right, from the captivity. You know, my mind, the hyper-focused point of view, the influence of my parents, the alcoholism, the drug addiction, all of those things kept me focused on just one part of my life. And that prison that was created was something that I had to have a spiritual, transformational energy to break that perception of self. And it's found in the Sacred Seven. We can really get into this power of identity through this. So we begin with the inside place. And this is the child within. And the child within is the very first container of self-identity. And this container of self-identity reflects the inside place. The inside place is the place that the child within us resides. So as I say, my name is Andrew Ecker, I begin to resonate with that frequency of the inner child. This is the inside place. And the child within us holds the relationship to faith. The inner child holds the relationship to the mystic. The child comes into this world and comes in with a knowing that it will be provided for. Doing the work around the inner child is really coming into a space where we begin to activate that captive child again, that curious child, that creative child, the very essence of the child that for many of us has been dismissed is the very source of faith. It's the faith of the child that really brings transformation into our life, that brings trust back to us. So the inner child, the very first representation of self-identity, as I say, my name is Andrew Ecker, I'm stepping consciousness into that place of reflection from the inside place. It's the intuitive, the knowingness that comes from the child within. So this beginning place of the inner child is very important for us to realize, because it's the very first declaration of self-identity. The power that comes from my name is Andrew Ecker, as I sit in ceremony, as I sit in sweat lodge, as I declare myself to the congregation, to the community, to my family even, you know, standing in nature and saying that this is me, this is who I am, stepping into the inner child. So there's a place of imbalance and balance in each one of the containers of self-identity. Each one of them holds a balanced representation of self, and there's also an imbalanced representation of self. And this is important to realize, because the totality of the experience of the Sacred Seven really imparts to us the optimal state of perception. With one direction, we only see in one part of ourselves. But as we begin to work fluidly and do the work around each one of the containers of self-identity, we then get the magnitude of what it means to be a whole human being. So the imbalance within the child leads to irresponsibility, procrastination, drunkenness, addiction. All of those things come from the inner child when the inner child is in imbalance. It's also the place of the annoying clown, that clown kind of out there doing things for attention. You know, the inner child creates that imbalance when it isn't fortified by the feminine and the masculine. And that's where we're going to get into next, is actually the feminine representation of self-identity. And this is the below space, Mother Earth, the sacred womb, the place of darkness. See, the inner child is actually an inner light. It's the inner energy inside of us. As we step into the dark place of the womb, we come into the realization of Mother Earth. How are we in relationship with our Earth Mother in her representation of the divine feminine? Was she in a way of giving us that informational download? Did she show up in the divine feminine? These are the things that we begin to loosen ourselves from, the captivity of that earth-based relationship, and into the infinite representation of Source, God, the goddess working through our mother. This is a very powerful space of self-identity, because the divine feminine creates the nurturer inside of us. It is the part of ourselves that promotes confidence, wellness. The well attributes of emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, physical wellness come from the nurturing side of self-identity. We nurture the body when we eat good food, when we exercise, when we take time to lay in the sun. This is the nurturing qualities of the power of the divine feminine. I put the crying child in this slide to remind us of how significant the nurturing power can be. I raised a foster son for many years of my life, and I remember this little guy, he would come sometimes with a boo-boo on his finger or his knee or some place where he skinned his elbow. And I remember I would kiss his little finger and he would just instantly stop crying. You know, it's the nurturing quality within me that creates divine feminine, that imparts it to the child, right? The child holds faith in the nurturing qualities of the feminine, and in turn, there's instantaneous healing, instantaneous manifestation of wellness inside of an actualized individual. This is an important quality that we begin to understand in the feminine aspect of self. Well, in the contemporary culture, we are created inside of concrete gender roles, right? The idea that I'm born into a male body means that I must be masculine. And all of the heroic ideas of the masculine, those imparted imbalances of what it means to be a man today, right? In the indigenous way, there's a way of understanding self that's loosened in gender, but to say that we have the feminine and the masculine inside of each person. This is where we begin to understand how indigenous communities created whole representations of self-identity inside of people, the basic foundations of what it means to be an optimal earthling, what it means to be an optimal citizen of a community. These are the things that happen, that should have happened in our creation. These ideas and concepts should have been taught to us as early as our very first words. You know, it was taught to me by one of my relatives, my adopted nephew. He said to me, if you don't know how to introduce yourself in the Dene tradition, Navajo tradition, you're called abandoned. Not abandoned in the sense of we have shunned you from the tribe, but abandoned in the sense of, oh my gosh, nobody taught you who you are. We need to help you understand who you are. And this is something that I feel is so important for our contemporary culture. And that's why I feel I've been the steward of the Sacred Seven, to help facilitate this transformational process for people. The divine feminine creates that nurturing side of self, and it represents in every single human being the feminine qualities of reality. The below space is the place of darkness, the creative force, the birthing womb. It is out of the darkness that light comes. This is what she gives to us, Mother Earth. As the seed falls into the ground, it gives itself an opportunity to root in creative power, in transformational, evolutional energy. This is where the divine feminine gives to us. It gives us this power inside of ourselves with acknowledgement, with actually being in relationship to the divine feminine. We begin to magnify that area inside of ourselves. And it then creates balance in all of our relationships. So what does it mean to be balanced in the divine feminine? It means to have the ability to nurture ourselves through the trauma, to nurture ourselves through the parts of us that need wellness, that need love, that need rest. This is an important understanding. When we have the imbalance of the feminine, we turn into a person that's constantly looking for nurturing outside of ourselves. We are the person that needs to be babied, right? We need to be babied by the people who are around us. We have that whining nature inside us. You know, I put this little comic strip because it's like the imbalance in the feminine is a person who constantly is looking for those to approve them in their sickness, in their victim. So hypochondriac clinic, imaginary doctor will see you now. We're constantly creating the illusion of sickness in ourselves when we have that imbalance. You know, and sometimes it's manifesting itself in all different dysfunctional behaviors, including that outside need, constantly trying to get that outside acknowledgement, that outside understanding because of the imbalance within ourselves. A balanced, mature spiritual person understands how to nurture the child within and how to have balance with the divine masculine, which is the next representation of self-identity. And the divine masculine is Father Sky, the above place, the place of infinite perception of the masculine. How does the masculine show up in ourselves? You know, we have many ways of understanding the masculine in a divine sense, not the distorted sense of the masculine, that dominant idea of domination and hurtful representation, the person who doesn't have any feelings, right? These are the ways that the contemporary culture has created an illusion around the divine masculine. As we begin to step into the balanced perception of the above place, as we begin to look down at ourselves, as we begin to optimize with the child and with the feminine, we can create that divine masculine representation of self that knows how to protect itself. It knows how to go through the linear conceptualizations of the logical mind, how to step into problem solving, how to step into that place in which we begin to understand how to take an issue and find a solution. This is what the divine masculine gives to us. It gives us that representation within us. Now, we may say to ourselves, well, if there's a person who is a woman, how can she have a masculine side? This is how we have operated since the dawn of cultural identity. It is the distortion that says that only men can have masculinity. This is the idea that only men can have the protector. We have given our power over to the institution of manhood, and we have created distortion within men. This is the reality of the dysfunctional culture that we're living in, the society that's even perpetuated itself. When we stand in the place of understanding that there's a quality within the feminine, the masculine, and the child, we begin to create a very powerful sense of self-identity. So the divine masculine presents in how to relate to problem solving. This is a very functional identity of self when we begin to utilize it in a way that serves us and those around us. The imbalanced force of the divine masculine, there's so many representations of it right now, right? Within our culture, you can find the representation of the imbalance of the masculine almost everywhere you look. You know, greed, these things come from the divine masculine because it's overprotection, overconsumption, fortified ideas. Right now with the issues that we're going through, you know, it's the divine masculine that leads people to go out and hoard food. It's the overprotection, the imbalance in the masculine that says that, oh, I have to protect myself. I have to protect myself. Without that overprotection, we come to a place of realization, calm, stability. As the feminine, the masculine, and the child work in synchronicity, we are able to let go of the defensiveness, to let go of the aggression, the dominating forces of the imbalanced masculine. These are things that we have to address in ourselves before we can address them in others. And this powerful technology of self-identity begins to create that architecture, what I like to call a metaphysical architecture. Now, these are terminologies that I've had to define in my life in order to birth the technology of the Sacred Seven. I believe that maybe there was a time when we had language to understand how thoughts begin to create reality. But for me, I came up with the terminology of metaphysical architecture. And this is how, when we define these aspects of self-identity, we fortify it through thought, through prayer, through intention, through ceremony. We then to create a balance in the frequency of life. You see, if you imagine that each one of us was holding a blanket, parts of that blanket, and I threw into the middle of the blanket a bowling ball, and we all dropped marbles, those marbles would all flow to the bowling ball. Well, this is how it is with the imbalance of the fortitude of the masculine and the imbalance within our lives. We've created basically a gravity that's pulling in its likeness in our relationships. That's why when we balance ourselves through the sacred seven, we begin to find sovereignty. It's really exciting. So the three spiritual directions that I just gave you a little bit of understanding into, right? This would be the above place, the below place, the inside place. These are the three spiritual directions, and they hold infinite potentiality. We don't know how far the above place will go. We don't know how far the below place will go. We don't know how small things can get inside of us. And these three spiritual directions begin to create the triangle or the Trinity, the very same sacred geometry that we have represented in the pyramids, represented in all of these beautiful buildings of antiquity. It is the pyramid that lasts. It is the triangle that lasts, that weathers the storm. That's why within sacred geometry, when we have a quality within the triangle, it is so powerful. It is a very powerful tool. The glacier here that you see in the slide, it shows us that there's an above place, a below place, and an inside place. There's much more to perceive from life when we begin to loosen ourselves to those perceptions. To be honest with you, if you could identify yourself in ceremony with just these three, you would have power in your life. If I was just able to impart to you these three wisdoms, you would have a deep understanding inside of yourself. You would have a deep representation of who you are. But there is more to revelation. There is more to the process of the sacred seven that you can understand. I love to share the three spiritual directions with you because there's so much power into it. And I want those, it's almost like I could give you I guess a hall pass. You know, if I was to say to you, just work on the child, the feminine and the masculine. If I was to say that to you, you would have transformation. You would have a deep transformation in your life, and you would have a greater understanding of who you are. There's also so much more within the four physical directions that I will get into. And the four physical directions are the east, the south, the west, and the north, represented in our grandparents. So as we begin to introduce ourselves in ceremony and we say, I am Andrew Ecker, my mother, Kathy Lindsay, my father, Dale Ecker, we begin to resonate with those three spiritual directions. So much power in that. If we step into our grandparents, now we're really stepping into a deeper understanding of our ancestral connection to who we are. And our grandparents, many of us had relationships with our grandparents that really, maybe they didn't mean much to us, but we've always been in a place of wondering. Why is there a place of wondering inside of us about our grandparents? Because of course, it's important for us to understand our grandparents. In the village, in the clan, in the tribe, that interaction with your grandparents was always a premise. It was always a foundation. There was always a way of connecting to them. As we've grown in dysfunction as a society and as a culture, we've limited ourselves in understanding how to relate to our clan, how to relate to our family, how to relate to our grandparents. I know that there's maybe some of you that are feeling like, oh, I didn't know my grandparents. I didn't even know their names. Well, there's ways that we can take you to that place of understanding them on an energetic level, a very powerful way that you can begin to hold space for them to bring that information that your soul is needing. These are the things that I have looked into in myself, because that transformational space, when I first heard in ceremony an elder introduce themselves on the Navajo Nation in a hogan, you know, they were burning wood in there. The smoke was making my eyes a little bit burning. And I remember these elders sat down and they introduced themselves, and there was a shift energetically in the room from an elder sitting and introducing themselves. By just knowing who they are, there was a transformational shift in the whole collective consciousness of that group setting. So this is where the weight, right, where we begin to fortify who we are as we step into the grandparents. We begin to understand, first of all, the 4 containers of self-identity that hold keys to abundance in relationships. The 3 spiritual directions hold keys to understanding self. Now we're stepping into the relational spirituality outside of ourselves. Growing in the self within the child, the feminine, and the masculine is foundational. Now we learn about the new relationships that our grandparents hold for us and how we relate to that metaphysical architecture, how we hold space for ourselves. So Grandmother East, she begins, this is the mother's mother. And in the traditional tribal sense, this would be your clan identity. This is actually who you are. In the matriarchal systems of my ancestors, my Apache ancestors, this is actually who you are, what clan you are born to. So in the relationship you have to your mother's mother, this is actually your true identity. The same is with the Jewish way of understanding self. All matriarchal systems go through the mother's womb to mother's mother. And this is a very powerful channel of representation of self-identity. As we call upon Grandmother East, as we say, my mother's mother, Elva Gallegos, I'm initiating the conscious connection to the East, that direction. I'm putting myself in the East, looking back at who I am. And what is it that she holds the gateway, the doorway to in relational spirituality? She is actually the giver of the East. She holds a space for new relationships. Why is it so important to understand who your mother's mother is? Because in the East, she witnesses your representation of self-identity to all new relationships. Guess what? Every person in your life is a new relationship. Your family was a new relationship. Your friends are a new relationship. Your community, all are new relationships. That's why Grandmother East gives us that guidance and understanding. As we call upon her in ceremonial introduction, we activate the space of new relationships. If we have a struggle with meeting new people, this is where we can bring balance to that relationship by simply understanding how to hold space for that optimal state of self-identity and design. Imbalance and balance in the East. This is where we begin to understand those that are constantly looking for new relationships, right? That have an inability to let a new relationship turn into a long-term relationship, where you're constantly looking for approval from people. And if there's any sense of depth or vulnerability or intimacy, you run from that relationship. This is what happens when we have an imbalance in the East. And an imbalance in the East, we get away from that idea of what it means to go and be able to introduce ourselves to new people. When we have that initiation inside of us, when Source says to us, go talk to that person, we basically become paralyzed. This is also an imbalance in the East. A balanced perception of self in the East flourishes all relationships because, of course, they're new relationships. Every single one. Very powerful representation of self-identity in Grandmother East. Grandmother South, as I say, my father's mother, Evelyn Beatty. This was my Irish grandmother. She really helped me understand a strong work ethic. Elva Gallegos brought spirituality into my life. You know, some of our representations of our grandparents in our lives actually bring teachings to us. And as we begin to formulate that representation of our physical grandparents, we also step into the spiritual representation of them. And this is where we begin to understand how to loosen ourselves from the idea that it was just the physical representation of that individual that came to our life. But what is the meaning and purpose? Why did we raise our hand in the spirit and say, I will be born too? This is what brings us sovereignty, right? When I say to myself that I gave witness that I would come down here and that I would be the son of Kathy and Dale, 2 parents that would die of related causes. When I look at my life in that way of spiritual empowerment in my relationships, I can loosen myself from the victim. And this is an important understanding as we begin to define the role of our grandparents in ceremonial introduction. So Grandmother South, the father's mother, she guides us in relationship to our family. What happened in the pre-existence when we rose our hand up and we said, I will be the son of, I will be the daughter of, I will be the grandchild of? When we stepped into that agreement, because the soul is eternal. The existence of the soul was in agreement with those representations of self-identity. This is a part of your whole process and journey. And as you begin to go deeper into that and you do the soul work, the traveling, the journeying back into a place of nonlinear conceptualization of time, you will get a witness to that. And that is a part of this whole transformational process. When we begin to get into the technology that we're going to use later on in the formulation of these forms of self-identity, you'll begin to understand how we can utilize these ancient technologies to really bring us to understanding grandmother self as we relate to our family. So as we reflect upon the identity of family, that spiritual agreement that happened in the pre-existence, this is an important state to understand because it does free us from the victim. It frees us from the captivity of our illusion. The confusion of our illusion separates us from the truth. It is through the power of self-realization, when we allow for the source, the infinite intelligence, the great I am, God, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, to minister to us in those relationships, we begin to have that deep understanding. Maybe it's Allah, maybe it's Yusin, whatever the name is that you have for that energy. I'm not holding any of you back from utilizing this technology, whatever you feel comfortable with. So in balance in the family, this is where I remember, the first time that I was asked to say the prayer at dinner, how much that meant to me. It was so powerful for me to be myself, my spiritual self in front of my family. There was years where I couldn't even come over to my own grandmother's house because I was hooked on heroin, I was hooked on cocaine, alcoholic. Those years of separation from my family were so painful and so judgmental. But when I stepped into who I am in this transformation, what Spirit has done with me, how I have been molded into the realization of the man that's before you now. I was the one that Grandma asked to say the prayer at the dinner table. And now I'm the person that my parents, my grandparents asked to come and do sound healing in their home, come and smudge their home. I've stepped into the role of being myself, my authentic self, to my family. And I know many of you resist sharing maybe a mantra or a guided imagery meditation or opening yourself up to sharing a smudge with your family. But this is why you have been incarnated. You've been incarnated to be your authentic, vulnerable self to your family. And in doing so, you're going to find liberation in your life. You're going to destroy the imbalance of that relationship because they need you to be yourself. They need you to be who you are. You signed the agreement with them for that reason, so that they could learn from you and you could learn from them. Sometimes it's what not to do in our family situation. That's what we learn from them. But sometimes it is what to do. And you may be that catalyst of what to do. So the next person that we step into in the personification of the earth representation of self-identity, it's reflected within Grandfather West. And Grandfather West, this would be our mother's father. And my mother's father, Leroy Lindsay, very powerful archetype in my life, the warrior, career military man. Grandfather West leads us in the sacred container of self-identity to community. How do we show up to our yoga studio, to the place that we work out, to our church, to our spiritual community, to the sweat lodge we attend? All of these things rest in that sacred self-identity of who we are to community. The community space is who we have chosen to be with. You see, we chose to be with these people. These are the people that we have made relationship with because we can be in service to them. You see, this is what community gives us an opportunity to be, is that place of service, that place in which we can interact on Zoom, we can interact on Facebook. This is a powerful understanding of self-identity. We begin to create that optimal state of service work. We begin to transform lives. We begin to serve those who are around us. Those that need to have help, we're able to help them when we have a balanced representation of self in Grandfather West. Grandfather West gives us that understanding of how to serve community, how to be in that balanced nature of self-love as we serve others. The imbalance in community self can lead to overworking oneself, constantly looking for edification from others. This is the idea of the imbalance in community. It also is a place in which we can find acceptance, sometimes in dysfunctional community settings. Maybe the only place that we feel comfortable is at the bar, you know, drinking and drugging. These are communities that we can create around ourselves. When we have an imbalance of stepping into our authenticity, we sometimes feel imbalanced in our workplace, share from our hearts if we have an imbalance in grandfather rest. This is a very dynamic understanding of self-identity because, of course, it's reflected in those that we have personally brought into our lives because of a need to find service. So we create balance in the representation of self-identity of community through grandfather West. And in balance, we can serve and feel restored, feel refreshed, feel empowered. That's how we find balance in community. And it's very important in today to understand how much we are needed in community, but also how to balance all those other forms of self-identity so that we can live that optimal state of human design. So the final representation of self-identity rests in grandfather North. And this is where we step into our relationship with the elementals. We have created a foundation of self through the 3 spiritual directions, and then also the 3 representations of relationship within the human dynamic. These are the other human beings that we have relationship with, so we can build our empathetic response. When we understand the power of empathy through intimacy and vulnerability in our relationships to our family, to new people, and to the community, we can then understand how to speak the conscious language of the elements. And this is what Grandfather North allows us to be in relationship with. Grandfather North represents our relationship to the 7 sacred containers of elementals. And this is the air, the water, the fire, the earth, gravity, time, and spirit. These 7 essences of elements begin to help us understand how our consciousness plays out in reality. When we listen to the crackle of the fire and it is going along with the story in our minds, as we begin to step into a place of understanding the elements, we can see that our thoughts are manifesting in many different forms of reality. When synchronicities begin to manifest ourselves, it is spirit that has guided those things. Many of you have understood this. You've seen numbers manifest. You've seen likenesses manifest. Some of us have even walked into the room and the soundtrack that's playing on the loudspeakers is going along with the soundtrack in our head. This is the representation of what it means to be in relationship with the elements. These elements govern the reality that's around us. These are the forms that create tangible representation of the interpersonal energy manifesting itself upon the metaphysical architecture, in turn transforming the subatomic frequency. This is where atoms, where subatomic particles begin to create material matter. Those of us that are in a place of spiritual maturity understand that through thought and consciousness, we can create. This is a powerful understanding of how we relate to the elements. As we begin to mature, the limitless potential within self-identity becomes real, rationalized, and truthful to us. We begin to be loosened from the limits of the contemporary culture, and we begin to walk in that authority of an actualized individual. This is an important process. As we begin to relate to the elements, we begin to understand how the wind is blowing for us, how the sun is shining for us, how the trees and the shaking of the leaves are whispering to us in our mind. Sitting in meditation and prayer, we can begin to realize how we relate to the tree people, how we relate to the animal people, how we relate to the star nations, the heavenly galactic institutions that are out there, those organizations of stars, the celestial patterns. These are all navigated through relationship to the elements. Very powerful form of self-identity. Until we practice in the human relationships, the depth of understanding in that relationship to the elements, it just really won't be there. I can tell you this because I've learned to feel through my practice with my relationships to my friends, family, community, and of course it transforms into the planet. So imbalance and balance in the relationship. It incorporates the perspective of the North Imbalance is captivity. The balance is, of course, sovereignty. When we begin to understand that we can find balance inside of our relationship to the elements, we become heavenly minded but earthly good. This is the difference between those that are so etherical. They're always trying to push gratitude on everyone. They're always trying to push joy and happiness on everyone. It's like they're so disconnected from actually having relationships because of their spiritual dogma. This is an imbalance, and it's very widespread with spiritual community. We call it spiritually bypassing. You know, this can happen when you have an imbalance in relationship to the elements. You can also turn into the hermit. You know, the hermit is the person who will isolate themselves from human compassion, isolate themselves from empathy. They will isolate themselves from even being in their service, even though they have a great service work to do. The imbalance in the relationship to the elementals can lead us to a place in which we become disconnected from the optimal state of human design. So this is the final container of self-identity within the sacred seven. The relationship to these sacred containers of self-identity brings infinite source and purpose. Relationship to prayer, meditation, grounding, the animals, the trees, spiritual beings, all of this rests in the sacred seven containers. As we begin to understand these seven sacred containers of self-identity and do the work around them, formulate, mold the metaphysical architecture of self, we begin to transform our reality. The likeness begins to manifest itself. Long-term relationships, loving relationships begin to manifest. So there's a lot of deep concepts that I've shared with you. I'm so happy that all of you are listening with intent, with intention, and I know I can feel in my body a witness to the power that's transformed in all of your life so far. But I want to ask you a question, and this question pertains to, I guess, kind of a hack, you know, kind of a way to speed the process. I've gone through this in myself. I've identified through countless hours of prayer, meditation, and really ceremony around initiating myself into the sacred seven. And I want to share that with all of you. If I could share some more information with you about how to understand the sacred seven in a deeper way, would that be a journey that you would want to take? Because I can share more information with you tonight. I'm going to go ahead and put the information for the free book here, but I also want to let everyone know that there's a little bit more that I would like to share. Is that something that you would be willing to step into understanding? I guess you're looking for the chat, huh? Okay, so there's the Q&A here. Always open to learning. Excellent. Thank you, Monica. Monica has had an amazing experience at the Sacred Seven. I hope she'll come on at the towards the end of the program so she can share a little bit more about her understanding. So I'm going to go ahead. Awesome. Thank you. Please share. Kimberly raised her hand. Great. Thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and share then. If you all are open to listening more about the Sacred Seven, I am definitely open to sharing more with you. So this process here is about self-identity. It's about power within us as we begin to understand ourselves through this indigenous technology. And one of the things that can help you understand how to relate to yourself, the secrets that have been given to me and understanding into transforming my relationships, that which serves me. And I would know that you want to hear more, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the practice. So the practice begins with the book. I shared the link to get your free copy of the book. I know some of you are here for the free copy. You're going to get a lot of information from there. Really, I would love for you to join us for our first group experience. This is the first time that we launched the Sacred Seven in an online portal. So what I'm offering is, this is a select group of people that we're taking on a journey. I'm going to do one personal one-on-one session with each of the participants. We're going to get a small group of people for this first journey from our Facebook group. So it's the practice of the Sacred Seven through the Sacred Seven Facebook page. You can link to that group, and we're going to have, we haven't really looked at the limit yet, but it's going to be a smaller group of people that we're going to take through this first initial journey. So the journey begins with 7 sessions of transformation. So basically it's 8 weeks, but it's 7 sessions. Each session represents a form of self-identity. So we're going to go into the inner child, the divine feminine, the divine masculine. We're going to go into the east, the south, the west, and the north. And you're going to experience a sound journey. So I understand that I only was able to learn when I began to teach myself. And I believe this for you too. I believe that you are the key to unlocking the captivity, to unlocking the oppression within yourself, the self-doubt, the lack, the thoughts of lack, the thoughts that you aren't enough. These are the things that we can help you journey to unleashing, unraveling the confusion of the illusion. And through the instruments, through the drum, through the rattle, through the gourd, through the flute, through the hamtan, this ancient Mayan instrument, we're going to create a soundscape that will allow you to journey within each sacred container of self-identity. It's a 7 or 8 week process we're going to go through together in a group setting with accountability. This is going to be, you're going to journal about each of the containers of self-identity. Each week, we're going to have a process for you to do, a list of instructions, ceremonial instructions. You're going to create a space for you to connect to that essence of self-identity. You're going to learn to introduce yourself in ceremony. You're going to practice that ceremonial introduction. You're going to see the manifestation of what it means to actualize yourself in ceremony, in process of introducing yourself to the mountains, to the ocean, to the rivers, to the streams, to the air, the water, the fire, the earth, to be that representation of what the universe, God, knows you to be. This is the process of the Sacred Seven. And of course, there's going to be things that are going to come up for you. Of course, your relationship to your earth family is going to manifest in this process. That's why it's important for me to create a safe container for everyone to be vulnerable, to be intimate with one another, to really step into this practice. I really want you to join me and be a part of this. I'm going to give you what I feel the value of this would be. Now, remember, this is the first time. So if I was to do this with another group, or if I was to offer this at a retreat, basically just this program that we're creating, you would get a copy of the book, of course. This is a real hard copy of the book. You would get one-on-one session, my coaching session. All of those sessions are $200. The group sessions would be, of course, my hour price that I give, $1,400. The $1,625 would be what I would say the value of this is. Now, because this is the first time that we've done this group, we're going to offer the transformational journey for you for a donation. So 8 weeks of this practice, 8 weeks, 8 sound journeys, drum journeys, ceremonial journeying into your self-identity, accountability through our Facebook group, all of those things for donation. This is something that we've never done before. So the first group is going to be a practice run, right? It's going to be a practice run into how we can begin to alleviate ourselves from addiction, how we can alleviate ourselves from dysfunctional, abusive relationships, all of these things. I have found this in the Sacred Seven, and I want you to be a part of this first group. Now, if you've seen value tonight in what I've shared with you, I am offering a signed copy of my book that I would love to give you. We usually charge $27 for the hard copy of the book. Tonight, because you've been a part of this webinar, we're offering them for $25. is a signed copy that will be mailed to you tomorrow. I'm going to give you my PayPal here in the chat room. And if you want to get a copy of the book, a signed copy, this is the hard copy of the book. The free copy that you're going to get is a PDF copy that will be emailed to you. But if you want an actual book, the tangible book with a personalized signed message, that you can get through PayPaling tonight only, tribal13th@gmail. And that's my PayPal. You need to put your, of course, your address in there and the way you want the message or the name that you want the message to go to. So I'm really excited to open this up for discussion and to hear from you. There is a way that I can do that now, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up for everyone to share a little bit of what you've heard so far, how it feels in your body, what you're feeling from it. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody now so that we can kind of talk here and share a little bit about this process. I want to hear from you if you feel open to coming on this journey that's going to happen next week. I'm going to be doing these basically introductions over the next week, and then we're going to launch the Facebook group, the first Facebook group, Journey into the Sacred Seven. During the sound journeys, Monica's going to actually participate as well. It's just a huge opportunity for you to go into the information that's inside of you. The truth is in you. The revelation of how to unravel the confusion of the illusion, the captivity, it's inside. I have known this because I have practiced it myself. You don't go from being the son of two junkies to being a sought after national keynote speaker unless you've done work. And this is a part of this indigenous technology that I want to share with you. I'm so excited. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to unmute everyone now so that we can start a little bit of a discussion. So everyone is unmuted here. I do see we have a couple hands up. So I'm opening this up. Kimberly, if you had something you'd like to share. Frankie. Any of you, if you'd like to share right now. Kimberly, I have you, you are open to share. I seen that you had your hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you. The information is incredible, and I am very interested in checking more of it out. And Elizabeth and I were at the Element Summer Gathering, so we got a little bit of a taste of what you're talking about in introductions and family and whatnot. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so please connect with the Facebook group. And like I said, it's going to be sometime next week that we'll begin the journey together. So that's awesome. And you know, that is such a fun gathering, man. We had such a good time over there in the Redwoods.
Yeah.
I really hope, I'm believing that we're going to be out there again.
Yes, me too. Definitely.
Awesome.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. And Carrie, did you have something you'd like to share? It's not letting me unmute you for some reason. I don't know why. Oh. I don't know what. Maybe you have to do it, Carrie. Maybe you have to unmute yourself because it's not letting me. Maybe it's not set up that way. I'm not sure. Is there anyone else that would like to share tonight? I don't see any hands going up here. You can also share in the chat room as well.
Everyone's shy.
Yeah, everyone is shy. We were the only two to talk. Well, I want to thank everybody. I don't want to keep everybody on here. We're going past an hour now. But please go to the Sacred Seven Facebook page. Check out the practice of the Sacred Seven. This is going to be the first kind of entryway into the group. I'm going to be putting up more information on when we begin the journey. You'll find the information on the actual date that we're going to begin with each one of the sacred containers of self-identity. And thank you all so much for joining tonight. You know, I had so much fun sharing this information with you, and I look forward to connecting with you all in the Facebook group. So again, thank you all for being part. Oh, there's somebody here in the chat. Not sure how to unmute, but wanting to express deep gratitude for you and your journey. Thank you so much. I will be along with you and the rest of the community on your Facebook for your offering. Great, so good to know. Yeah, I don't understand exactly, you know, I'm a little bit new, to be honest with you. Let's see. In how to create, let's see. Okay, here, if I go this way, maybe it will allow you to talk. So I think I'm allowing everybody to talk now. At least I was trying to. All right, well, you know, a little bit of technical difficulties here tonight, but not anything that I can't work out for our sessions that we're coming up with. And thank you so much, Sarah Ya, I believe I'm saying that right. I hope I'm saying it right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and joining in this process of the Sacred Seven. I will see you all in the Facebook group. I'm going to be doing this again tomorrow night, same time. If you have friends that you feel would benefit from the journeying work, from the transformation of the Sacred Seven, please invite them. I'll be posting the time. It'll be 7 o'clock Phoenix time for the next introduction to the Sacred Seven. I'm going to be doing 7 of these prior to the launch of the first group. Again, if any of you would like to get a copy of the book, you can PayPal me $25 tonight, and I will send those copies out tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and close here in a prayer. So, Father, Mother, Creator, Source, I thank you for this opportunity to be in this prayer place. I thank you for allowing for me to share the information of the Sacred Seven. And I pray a blessing over all those that have listened tonight. I pray you would bless their home place, their workplace, their personal thoughts, Creator God. I pray that you would bring them love and abundance. I thank you for the east, the south, the west, the north, the below place, the above place, the inside place, and all the holy ones that are there. Beauty above, beauty below, beauty beside, beauty in front, beauty behind, beauty within. I am, we are made beautiful again. Aho! Love you guys. Thank you.